Hello, everyone, and welcome back. In our last lecture, we explored what leadership is and why it matters in criminal justice organizations. Next, we're going to shift our focus from leadership as a concept to the people who actually lead. Have you ever noticed that when people describe great leaders, they rarely begin by talking about rank? Instead, they just say things like, she was honest, he stayed calm under pressure, or she always treated people with respect. Those are character traits. Today's lesson asks an important question. What qualities make someone an effective leader? As we move through today's lecture, I also want you to think about yourself. Don't think only about the leaders you worked for. Think about the leader you hope to become. Leadership development starts long before your first promotion. So today's lesson, it's always important to come back to our learning outcomes, especially our course learning outcomes. So first, you'll begin evaluating how leadership traits contribute to ethical policing and stronger community trust. Second, you'll develop the foundation you'll need later in the theme to create strategic leadership plans that improve morale, accountability, and organizational performance. Everything we discussed today builds toward becoming the kind of leader people want to follow. Not because they have to, but because they trust you. So here's an age-old question. Are leaders born or made? Research suggests the answer is both. Some people do naturally possess qualities like confidence or strong communication skills, but leadership itself is learned. I've had the privilege of leading in several very different environments, working in the legal profession, serving as a college professor, directing academic programs, and serving as an elected school board trustee. What's interesting is that none of those positions came with an instruction manual for leadership. Trust me, I wish they did. Every one of them required me to learn through experience. I had to learn some of the best lessons ever from my mistakes. Some came from watching and aligning myself with exceptional leaders. Others came from watching ineffective leaders and me deciding, when I'm in that position, I will never lead that way. Leadership develops through experience, reflection, humility, and continuous learning. But there are common traits that we associate with good leaders. And some of those traits that have been identified that consistently appear among effective leaders are integrity, emotional intelligence, self-confidence, adaptability, initiative, resilience, accountability. Notice something important about these traits. None of these traits mention intelligence first. Technical knowledge is important. You have to know how to do the job, especially in law enforcement. But people don't usually decide whether to follow a leader based solely on how smart they are. They decide based on whether they trust them. Sometimes when you've seen military movies on TV, you hear them say, I would follow that leader to hell and back because he would get us back. That's not because they were intelligent, but it's because of the kind of leader they are. So let's look at integrity. If I could choose one trait, it would possibly be integrity. This is the hallmark to the foundation of leadership. Integrity means doing the right thing, even when it's inconvenient, even when nobody is watching. And in our line of work, even when the decision is unpopular. One thing public service teaches you very quickly is that you cannot make everybody happy. Trust me, as a school board member, I've participated in meetings where community members passionately disagreed with me, disagreed with one another, and the rest of the board. In those moments, leadership is not about making everyone happy. It is about making decisions that are ethical, lawful, transparent, and in the best interest of the organization and the people that you serve. The same is true in criminal justice. A supervisor who consistently applies standards fairly earns credibility from the people they supervise. A supervisor who bends the rules, depending on who is involved, quickly loses that credibility. This shows Integrity is the foundation upon which every other leadership trait is built. Another quality that's becoming increasingly more important is called emotional intelligence. So, this simply means understanding your own emotions while recognizing and responding appropriately to the emotions of others. Think about the environment that we work in the criminal justice system. People are often experiencing the worst day of their lives. They've been victimized. Their loved one has been injured, their families. They're witnesses to a crime. Their employees dealing with the stress of a critical incident. Leaders who lack emotional intelligence often make situations worse. Leaders with emotional intelligence know when to listen instead of when to lecture. As an educator, I've learned that sometimes students don't need immediate answers. Sometimes they simply need someone to listen to them before solving the problem. The same principle applies when supervising officers. Leadership isn't only about giving direction, it is about understanding people. So let's look at another question, be more proper. Why do people seek leadership positions? What are their motives? Hopefully, they are doing it because they want to serve others. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. Some people pursue leadership because they want authority. Others want recognition. Some people simply just enjoy being in control. And those motivations rarely produce effective leaders. The best leaders I worked with were motivated by service. They wanted their organizations to improve. They wanted employees to succeed. They wanted to leave the organization better than they found it. And those are the kinds of motives that sustain great leadership over time. So let's kind of look at something that's associated with leadership: self-confidence versus arrogance. So a healthy confidence, that is essential to being a good leader. But where you get in trouble is arrogance. In our line of work, arrogance can be dangerous. Good leaders are confident enough to make difficult decisions. And great leaders are humble enough to admit when they're wrong. One of the things I appreciate most about higher education is that every semester reminds me there's still so much to learn. I learn from you as my students here. Students ask thoughtful questions. My colleagues, my fellow faculty members here, they introduce new perspectives. The research about what we're studying, it evolves. Best practices and principles change. And leadership really works the same way. The moment a leader believes that they have nothing left to learn, and they've stopped growing. And there's that saying, right? That, when you stop growing, you die. The strongest leaders and the best leaders are going to remain lifelong learners. So leadership, I'm not going to lie, it can be hard, right? But it can also be incredibly rewarding. There are days when you'll make decisions knowing somebody's going to criticize them. There are moments when you'll experience failure, you will experience conflict, and you'll make mistakes. What matters isn't avoiding these moments, because they're going to happen, I promise you. What matters is how you respond to them. One lesson that I've learned throughout my career is that resilience isn't about pretending everything is fine, because sometimes everything is not fine, and it is okay to say that. It is about remaining focused on your mission while continuing to move forward, learning from challenges rather than allowing the challenges to define you. That quality is essential in criminal justice leadership. Now we're going to talk about leadership character. Character isn't revealed when everything is going well. Well, character is revealed when things become difficult, when policies are challenged, when public pressures increase, when ethical decisions become uncomfortable. People watch leaders most carefully during adversity. In every leadership role I've held, I've discovered that employees and community members rarely expect perfection. but they do expect honesty. They expect consistency. They expect fairness. They expect accountability. And those qualities are qualities that build trust over time. Now, we also have these traits that are important in criminal justice as far as a criminal justice leader, right? You're going to see you have service. If you're in this business, you should be in this business because you are here to serve your community. You have to have integrity. Integrity is a key function of the law enforcement officer. As a leader, you have to be an expert communicator. That is why you're here in school, to learn how to communicate better. You have to be adaptable and respond to changing conditions, but also decisive. You're the one to decide what's going on, and acting under pressure. But you also need to be empathetic and accountable. These are all very important traits for you to have in the justice system. And we're going to see these traits applied in our next case study. So here's our case study. You have been promoted to sergeant. Congratulations. One of your best officers has made a serious mistake. So, it's an honest mistake, but it's serious during a high-profile investigation. The easy decision would be to overlook it and cover for the officer. The harder decision is for you to address it fairly while also supporting that officer's professional growth. So I want you to consider what leadership trait matters the most here. And you can leave it in the comments below. Is it integrity? Is it courage? Is it empathy? Accountability? So I would argue the answer is actually all of them, because leadership often requires balancing competing responsibilities. And that is why your character matters. So how do we develop all these traits? Well, part of the thing is you're in class, right? So here's the encouraging news. Leadership isn't fixed. You can develop these qualities. You can do that through your reading. Read books. Read about great leaders. Seek mentors. Your faculty is a great place to start with that. Ask for feedback. One thing is, don't be humble, right? Say, hey, am I doing okay? How could we do better? Continue learning. Become a sponge. Every leadership opportunity, large or small, helps shape the leader that you will become. I admit I'm still learning. Every class I teach, every board meeting I attend, every professional challenge teaches me something new about leadership. And that's one of the reasons why I enjoy this subject so much, is because leadership truly is a journey. It is not a destination. So again, we want to connect back to our course outcomes, right? So today's lessons on leadership traits, motives, and character directly prepare you for the broader goals of our course. You're learning how to apply integrity and character to evaluate model ethical leadership styles. You're learning how to use empathy, accountability, and emotional intelligence to improve team well-being. You're applying resilience and decisiveness to make sound decisions during critical incidents. And you're building credibility with public trust through consistent integrity and transparent communication. So these are all important. So key takeaways from today. So today we've learned that leadership begins with character. Integrity creates credibility. Emotional intelligence strengthens relationships. Healthy motives produce healthier organizations. Resilience helps leaders navigate adversity. And perhaps most importantly, leadership can be developed. No matter where you are in your career today, you can begin becoming the leader that you want to be tomorrow. As you complete this week's reading, I am going to encourage you to think about one leadership trait that you'd like to strengthen over your time here. Just start with one, not 5, not 6, 1. Take small improvements, because small improvements made consistently over time often produce extraordinary leadership. So in our next lecture, we're actually going to examine charismatic and transformational leadership. These are 2 leadership styles that have shaped organizations, inspired change, and sometimes created unexpected challenges. I'll see you in the next video.